Tonight we party, my friends.
Sip on mezcal, I like tequila, damn this shit tasty. Kid you not, I made about $1 million off a pink beanie. I feel like my life is a movie, damn this too easy. Can't catch me, I'm jumping the borders, hit the embassy. It's bag or die. 7 gold chains on me, call me slick.
Hi, we should all know Coca-Cola here by now, and I feel like that was the same 30, 40, maybe even half a decade ago, in the 1970s, when Coca-Cola had 40% market share, which was insane because that was of all drinks sold in the US. Coca-Cola seemed untouchable until 1975 when Pepsi released this ad campaign called the Pepsi Challenge.
People pick Pepsi time after time after time. Pepsi-Cola.
This took an unprecedented 30% market share from the untouchable giants that were Coca-Cola. The Pepsi Challenge campaign was a blind taste test between Coke and Pepsi where most of the people preferred Pepsi. The main reason this campaign was so successful and that people were choosing Pepsi every time was that Pepsi added extra sugar to their formula, giving the initial taste test to Pepsi. But over the course of a bottle, people could not tell the difference between Coke and Pepsi. This all comes to a point where Coca-Cola was still losing market share and they had to act fast. They had two options: to either release a new project and hope it landed, or they can do the most unthinkable thing and replace one of their own existing products.
I'm Don Keogh, president of the Coca-Cola Company. When we brought you the new taste of Coke, we knew that millions would prefer it, and millions do.
Everybody's known for a long, long time that Coca-Cola is made from a secret formula. It's in here. A few weeks ago, we took it out just for a little while, just long enough to improve it. Now, you still can't look at the formula, but you can look at the result. You can taste it.
And we knew that it would beat the taste of our major competitor, and it does.
But did it really? The general public opinion of New Coke was outrage, and many people made it very clear. People described the chains as if they had lost a loved one, and people did not drink New Coke to avoid awkward social situations. People were pouring Coke into the drains, and groups started selling anti-Coke merch. These actions showed how Coke, taking away the original formula, was taking away people's identities. There's a man named Dan Lok that was so distraught by the change that he said, "From now on, my life will be divided into BC and AC, before the change in Coke and after. I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do." People were selling cases of the old Coke formula for double the price and that being sold out. This was because this was from the countries that had not made the switch yet, showing how much people wanted the old formula back.
What we didn't know was how many thousands of you would phone and write asking us to bring back the classic taste of original Coca-Cola. Well, we read and we listened, and you know the rest. They're both yours, the new taste of Coke and Coca-Cola Classic.
Just 90 days after the release of New Coke, Coca-Cola retracted all New Coke sales and brought back the old formula. This increased their market share to 45%, capping Pepsi at a solid 30%, not going any higher. It was the biggest success Coke could ever ask for. But why? Why did the biggest failure in all of brand history end up in the biggest success they could have asked for? I wanted to get into why that was the case and the science behind why this was even a big deal in the first place. First, I would like to talk about consumer identity and how it plays a role in this entire situation. Consumer identity is defined by the congruence between a brand image and self-image. Whenever someone is looking to buy a product and they see one that has a personal, positive feeling attached to it, through either a family member having it or a celebrity endorsing it, they will oftentimes choose that product more. And the usual strategy of brand marketers is to rub as many good things onto the product so when people look at a product, they have as many good things attached to that product through the marketing. This can be seen in the ladies' cut, which was a perfectly fine cut of steak, but people thought it was a more feminine identifying cut of steak, so not as many people bought it. Many brands started to rename it as the chef's cut. This gave a more ambiguous identity to the steak, increasing the sales of the steak by a lot. Raluca Mihalcea had a quote stating that, "In a consumer culture, people no longer consume for merely functional satisfaction, but consumption becomes meaning-based, and brands are often used as symbolic resources for the construction and maintenance of identity. All human behavior is a symbolic action." Have you ever read an article about one of your favorite brands doing something terrible and all of a sudden you don't want to buy it anymore? This is the basic concept of the quote, and another level of consumer identity. If the celebrity endorsing your favorite product does something terrible, you no longer want to buy it. And when you know there was terrible things done to get the product you are buying, you no longer want it. These are the things that modern consumers are conscious of and that brand marketers need to be very wary of when they promote a product. Many of us have grown up in an environment that values consumer identity. In the food we buy, in the clothes we buy, and in the shows we watch, they're a big part of our social society, creating the perfect setting for this Coke situation to happen. There's another strong way marketers use consumer identity to get people to want to buy their products. This is called the in-group and the out-group. If you create a situation where your product is the in-group and your competitors are the out-group, customers are more likely to buy your product over and over again so they can stay a part of the in-group, and are more likely to not buy stuff from the out-group to fit into the in-group. This can be shown with the ad campaign from MacBook, clearly showing that their product is the cool hip group and PCs are for old losers.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
I'm a PC.
Ready to get started?
Well, not quite. Got a lot to do. What's your big plan?
I might make a home movie or maybe create a website, try out my built-in camera. I can do it all right out of the box, so what about you?
Well, first I gotta download those new drivers, and I gotta erase the trial software that came on my hard drive.
Sweet.
Then I've got a lot of manuals to read.
You know, it sounds like you have a lot of stuff to do before you do any stuff, so I'm just gonna get started because I'm kind of excited. Let me know when you're ready.
Actually, the rest of me's in some other boxes, so I'll meet up with you later.
Even though both machines had very similar stats, this created a very powerful message that they were cool. I would like to introduce you to the three-line theory, a theory that makes up all of brand marketing today. The first line of marketing is cost. It is just how much it takes to make a product. The second line is the price, and is how much you are selling the product for. The third line is the perceived value, and this is how much people think the product is worth. The space between the cost and the price is called the margin. The job of a marketer is to raise the perceived value so a company can raise the price without people thinking they are overpaying. You never want to raise the price above the perceived value because the people will not buy your product because they don't think it's worth that much. And the price should never go below the cost because you'll start losing money. And oftentimes brand marketers will increase the perceived value through consumer identity. Consumer identity will make people think it is worth more than it actually is, allowing them to raise the prices. The three-line theory can be executed in many different ways, and let's look at a couple of examples of how different companies have used it in their own unique ways to increase their profits. For example, let's take Ford versus Ferrari. Ford has increased their perceived value while keeping their price close to the cost. This allows them to take market share for a loss in margin. While Ferrari has increased their perceived value so high that they can raise their prices to unimaginable heights, allowing them to make up for the loss in market share by how large their margins are. This is cool and all, but how does this relate back to the Coke situation? The Coke situation was an extreme case of consumer identity, where people were actually rioting in the streets because they identified with the old formula so much. So when the old formula returned, there was an insane raise in the perceived value based on consumer identity, allowing them to gain a massive lead in market share. This came to be studied as one of the greatest situations in consumer identity ever, and marketers have been trying to recreate situations like this to increase their perceived value for years, and how we really are what we buy.